Hello, Fellowship of the Open Spokes. It is Ben Wolkoff once again, and I am so excited to talk about this week's topic, which is failure. The reason why I'm so excited is because I had a up-close and personal experience with failure this morning. This morning I was speaking in front of about 350 educators, administrators, and other district-type folks in a keynote for an EdTech conference, a local EdTech conference, where we were discussing changing practice as well as the use of technology and thinking strategically. And I had been asked to do the keynote on blended learning, and I was pretty excited about the deck that I had put together. I was going to use a couple of videos from the fellowship. I really thought that I had a couple of pretty engaging activities, especially in a keynote. The ability to collaborate and to truly create a blended environment in a keynote is not always something that everybody sort of wants to tackle. But unfortunately, all of those plans, and I shouldn't say all, but a lot of those plans went out the window when the Wi-Fi stopped working. And it cut out at two pretty important points when I was asking people to actually all look at something together and to collaborate on something. And it became really difficult to continue with the plan as I had envisioned it. And so 350 people this morning watched me fail. And that experience, I think, is probably not one that we would want to repeat for students, but I actually think that I would want to model it for students. My ability to translate that failure, and obviously it's a technological failure, so it's not wholly felt within my own experience or within the way I was doing something, but it is also my lack of planning. I didn't have everything offline because I wanted to show the power of online collaboration and the ability for us to construct knowledge together. But to a certain extent, right, that's on me to be able to have these backup plans, to be able to talk about or think about what happens if we have these failures. And to a certain extent, I want to be able to model what happens when our plans do not work. And I want to be able to model for others, for teachers, for students, what it looks like when we fail so hard that we have to drastically change the way in which we do things. And so we did. We changed the way in which I was doing the activities. We did not collaborate on a concept board. We did not go through the process of creating a collaborative form and submitting it. Rather, we talked to one another, and actually it was okay. It was really okay that I had all of these questions that I wanted to think through, and we were going to collaborate and sort of submit them to one another for use later in the day and to kind of frame conversations. But it turned out that all we really needed to do was turn to one another and construct a little bit of knowledge with the people that were directly next to. And I think that the concept that we are constructing opportunities that are high stakes enough where a failure can not only happen, but possibly that we are tempting it to happen and saying, I dare you to not work out the way that I planned. And I don't think that it has to everything be high stakes or that we have to put people in front of someone else in order to watch failure happen. But we should tempt failure. And we should say, I believe that this learning is important enough that failure will not stop it from happening. And perhaps that I will use the failure to learn even better. And so to me, the concept that we are tempting failure constantly, that we should be looking for ways in which to raise the bar so that failure becomes perhaps just a core component of the way that we do things, because then we have to adapt. I wonder if we frame our failure in terms of a core component of our learning, and not in a way that it is simply our first attempt, but simply that everything is an attempt. Everything is high enough stakes where failure should adapt the way that we are doing things. And I think the only true and sort of static version of failure is a failure to adapt. Because I very easily could have stood up there and said, I'm going to futz around with this Wi-Fi and try and get it to work, talk amongst yourselves. But I didn't. I asked questions, and I probed deeper, and I walked around that large auditorium and hopefully framed the conversation according to failure. Framed it with the idea that we are creatures of failure and that we can create using failure. So my hope is that we're creating opportunities to fail so that we can adapt. What do you think about that? Do you think that's the reason why we should incorporate failure, or how we should incorporate failure? I'm interested to hear your thoughts. Thank you so much for watching and listening. I look forward to hearing your thoughts. Thanks, Fellowship.